Hello everyone. So, in today's class we will discuss the preliminary concepts when the fluid is in motion, which is known as fluid kinematics. There are two ways in describing a fluid motion. One is Lagrangian approach and other one is Eulerian approach. In Lagrangian approach, all the particles are tagged and their positions are examined with respect to time, and all hydrodynamic parameters are tied to the particles. In Lagrangian approach, if r is a position vector, then r can be represented as function of the initial position x naught, y naught, z naught and time. Similarly, velocity vector is function of the initial position. So, that means x naught, y naught, z naught, t, where x naught, y naught, z naught locates the starting point, okay, and b also can be represented as dr by dt, right. So, you can see in Lagrangian approach you actually track each and every particle, and acceleration you can also represent as function of x naught, y naught, z naught and time t, and this you can write as dv by dt. Whereas, in Eulerian approach, a particular point or the bulk of the fluid is considered as it comes in and goes out of the point or region. All hydrodynamic parameters are function of space and time. So, you can see that any parameter like velocity v is function of space and time. So, obviously, you can see that when we will discuss about the system approach and control volume approach, in Lagrangian approach is equivalent to system approach, where you have a fixed mass or a fixed particles and you are tracking each particle, and in Eulerian approach it is a control volume approach. So, you are focused in a particular region and you are tracking what is coming in and going out. So, when you are considering the Eulerian approach, there must be some visualization technique for seeing the fluid flow. So, for visualizing the fluid flow, the first we will discuss about the streamline. A streamline is defined as an imaginary line in the flow field, so that the tangent to the streamline at any point gives the direction of instantaneous velocity at that point. You can see that flow over a triangular cylinder at Reynolds number based on the projected area is 100, and these are some visualization of this fluid flow and it shows the streamline. Next we will discuss about the path line. A path line is the locus of a fluid particle starting from one particular point in the stream as it moves along. So, path line you can see that if you are actually tracking a particular fluid element and where it actually moves about in the fluid domain. So, that is the path line. So, for this particular case you can see flow over a triangular cylinder at Reynolds number 100, it shows the path line, and obviously at Reynolds number 100 it is a unsteady flow. So, instantaneous path line is shown here. Next we will discuss about the streak line. A streak line at any instant of time is the locus of the temporary locations of all particles that have passed through a fixed point in the flow field. So, you can see these are the locus of these particles which have come through a particular point, and these streak lines are shown at Reynolds number 100. So, this is also instantaneous because it is a unsteady flow, but if you consider a steady flow, then the streamlines, path lines and streak lines are identical. Since Lagrangian and Eulerian variables describe the same flow, there must be some relation between the two. So, that will actually relate through this substantial derivative. So, this relation is expressed through this substantial derivative, which is denoted as d by dt is equal to del of del t plus velocity vector v dot gradient. So, where v is the velocity vector, which is u I plus v j plus w k, and this gradient operator in Cartesian coordinate we can represent as del of del x I plus del of del y j plus del of del z k, where I j k are the unit vectors in x y z directions. So, if we want to represent the Lagrangian acceleration, then we can write that Lagrangian acceleration is, let us say, a star Lagrangian acceleration. So, obviously, it represents the acceleration of a fluid particle, and if you represent that A as Eulerian acceleration, then you can relate these two through this substantial derivative A star, which is your Lagrangian acceleration, you can denote as dv by dt is equal to del v by del t, which is actually the Eulerian acceleration plus v dot grad v. Okay. So, you can see that obviously this represents the acceleration in Lagrangian framework, and this del v by del t is the acceleration in Eulerian framework, and we represent this dv by dt as substantial or total or particle derivative. In this case, it is particle acceleration. This part is known as local or temporal acceleration. And the last part is known as convective acceleration. So, you can see that if velocity is 0, then obviously this part will become 0. You can see it relates between this Lagrangian approach and the Eulerian approach. So, obviously you can see that if it is a steady flow, del v by del t is 0, right, because for a steady flow in Eulerian approach you can make it 0. However, this convective part is not 0. Okay. So, there will be a substantial acceleration if the flow is steady. So, you can see that for steady flow, through a nozzle, okay. So, consider a nozzle. So, you can see it is a varying cross section. So, obviously, from 1 to 2 there will be change in the velocity as the area is decreasing. In this particular case, although it is a steady flow, but as there is a spatial change in the velocity, so there will be a convective part, right, which is not 0 although it is a steady flow. So, first part which is your local derivative, so that will be 0 and the substantial derivative will be non-zero. So, in this particular case for steady flow through a nozzle, you can see that this acceleration, Eulerian acceleration, it will be 0. However, the Lagrangian acceleration is not 0 because it is having the contribution from this convective acceleration as there is a spatial variation of velocity. As we are considering fluid is in motion, so obviously when one fluid element, if it is moving with the fluid velocity, so obviously there will be deformation of the fluid element. The movement of a fluid element in space has following distinct features. One is translation. So, you have fluid element. So, after some time it may translate from one place to another and it will happen when the velocity is constant. There may be fluid rotation. So, you can see it is kind of solid body rotation. So, it is having the initial position like this, but after some time just it rotates as a solid body. We can have rate of deformation. So, there are two types of deformation, one is linear deformation and another is angular deformation. So, linear deformation also is known as extensional or dilatation strain. In this case you can see that this is the fluid element. So, if velocity is function of one space coordinate, say let us say u is function of x only or v is function of y only, then only linear deformation will take place. But if the velocity is function of both x and y, we are considering two dimensional fluid element. So, in this case u and v are function of x and y. So, in this particular case there will be a angular deformation and that is known as shear strain. So, you can see when one fluid element is in motion, so it will have some extensional strain as well as shear strain due to angular deformation. First, let us consider linear deformation. That means the velocity u is function of x only or v is function of y only. So, first let us consider one fluid element where v is 0 and u is function of x only to simplify the problem. Let us consider this fluid element A, B, C and D, and in this case u is function of x only, right. So, u is velocity in the x direction. So, obviously you can see that we have the velocity u here. So, if the distance is delta x, this fluid element in the x direction, then obviously at this particular point using Taylor series you can say that velocity will be u plus del u by del x delta x, right. So, if you expand this using Taylor series, u at x plus delta x location, then you will get u plus del u by del x delta x. So, you can see now this point, this A or D, you can see obviously due to the linear deformation it will travel due to the velocity u, and this element has come here after a small time step delta t. Okay. So, obviously you can see that as you have a velocity u, so at delta t time it will travel u into delta t. So, and this is the location at delta t time b prime, c prime and d prime. So, similarly you can see that you have the velocity u plus del u by del x delta x. So, at time delta t it will move to this place b prime c prime. So, this distance from c to c prime it will be u plus del u by del x delta x into delta t. Okay. And this was the original length, this dotted line it is shown. So, it is delta x. So, you can see the difference will be just del u by del x into delta x into delta t. Due to this linear deformation, there is a change in the size in the x direction is del u by del x into delta t. So, in this case you can see the linear strain in the x direction is defined as the fractional increase in length of the horizontal side of the fluid element. So, in this particular case, so the linear strain now we can write as the change in the length, that is your del u by del x delta x into delta t divided by the original length delta x and per unit time delta t. Okay. So, that is nothing but del u by del x. So, you can see that if you consider the linear deformation in the x direction, then it is represented by the velocity gradient del u by del x. Similarly, if you consider that v is function of y and w is function of z, then similarly we can write the linear deformation in y and z direction as epsilon y y del v by del y and epsilon z z as del w by del z. So, you can see that if you consider that u is function of x, v is function of y and w is function of z, then the change in the volume you can consider, okay, change in volume. So, obviously you can see that your after deformation there will be a length delta x plus del u by del x into delta x delta t. So, this is in the x direction, in y direction it will be delta y plus del v by delta y delta t, and in z direction delta z plus del w by del z delta t. So, this is the volume after deformation minus the original volume. So, that is delta x into delta y into delta z. So, now if you neglect the higher order term, then we can write change in volume as del u by del x plus del v by del y plus del w by del z into delta x delta y delta z delta t. So, now if you write the volumetric strain rate, then we can write it as just you can see change in volume divided by the original length per unit time. So, it will be del u by del x plus del v by del y plus del w by del z, which is nothing but divergence of v, right, where v is the velocity vector. So, obviously you can see that if you consider incompressible fluid flow, so volumetric strain rate will be 0 and divergence of v will be 0. Now, let us consider two dimensional fluid element and velocities u v both are function of x and y, then obviously we will get the angular deformation. So, you consider first this initial position of the fluid element at time t. So, a, b, c, d, and after time t plus delta t, obviously as velocity u is function of x and y, v is function of x and y, then it will have some angular deformation and this is the position. So, it is a prime, b prime, c prime, d prime. So, after delta t time it has the angular deformation and the fluid element looks like this A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. So, you can see there is a change in the angle. So, we can say that this angle is delta alpha and this angle is delta beta. So, similarly you can see that if you have velocities here, so as u is function of x and y, so there will be change in the velocities. So, in this fluid element, if velocity is u here, here it is u and it is v. So, obviously in this position, if you can see that the length is delta x and this length is delta y, then here the velocity will be u plus del u by del y delta y. So, there is a change in the velocity and due to that this deformation is different in x and y direction. So, similarly if it is v, then obviously you will get here v plus del b by del x into delta x. Okay. So, now if you consider that there is a change in the position from time t to t plus delta t, then obviously you can see that this length, because it is having the velocity u. So, a to a prime at a time delta t, so it will be u into delta t, and this position you can see that this a prime to d prime, this vertical distance will be delta y plus del b by delta y into delta t, and this will be delta x plus del u by del x delta x into delta t, and this distance if you see, it will be del b by del x delta x into delta t, and as this velocity is v, so it has moved to here. So, this will be v into delta t, and this distance will be del u by del y delta y delta t. So, obviously now we can represent this delta alpha and delta beta in terms of the velocity gradient. So, if you see from here, if you write tan delta alpha, what you will get from here you can see. So, this divided by this, so it will be del b by del x delta t divided by delta x plus del u by del x delta x delta t. Similarly, tan delta beta you can see it will be, so del u by del y delta t divided by delta y plus del b by delta y delta t. So, now if you consider that t delta t is very small, then obviously you can write tan delta alpha is equal to delta alpha, right, and as delta t tends to 0. So, this you can write delta alpha is equal to, so if delta t tends to 0, you can see that you can write this as del b by del x into delta t, and similarly as delta t tends to 0, tan delta beta will be equal to delta beta, and delta beta you can write as delta t tends to 0 as del u by del y into delta t, okay, because delta t tends to 0. So, this will be very small compared to this delta y, then you can write del u by del y delta t. So, now you can see that we can represent this delta alpha, whatever this change in the angle divided by the time, in terms of the velocity gradient. Similarly, delta beta by delta t we can represent in terms of velocity gradient as del u by del y. So, now if we consider that rotation about an axis parallel to the z axis, okay, that we can write as d omega z is equal to half delta alpha minus delta beta. Okay. And the angular velocity at a point is defined as the arithmetic mean of angular velocities of two line elements at that point which were originally perpendicular to each other. So, in that case we can define the angular velocity omega x y as d omega z by dt is equal to half into delta alpha by delta t minus delta beta by delta t, and that we have already represented in terms of the velocity gradient. So, you can see this is nothing but half into del v by del x divided minus del u by del y. Okay. So, now we have represented the angular velocity in terms of the velocity gradient, and similarly the angular velocity in x and y axis we can write as omega y z is equal to half del w by del y minus del v by del z, and omega z x is equal to half del u by del z minus del w by del x. So, you can see all this you can write in terms of second order tensor, that is omega I j is equal to half del u j by del x I minus del u I minus del x j. And obviously, from here you can see that this angular velocity tensor is a skew symmetric. That means, it is a skew symmetric tensor as omega I j is equal to minus omega j I. So, now let us discuss about the shear strain rate due to this deformation of the fluid element. We have already evaluated the change of angle per unit time in terms of the velocity gradient. So, now the shear strain is defined as the average decrease of the angle between two lines which are initially perpendicular in the unstrained state. So, obviously, you can see that shear strain we can define as half of delta alpha plus delta beta. So, now we can write the shear strain rate So, this shear strain per unit time. So, that we can write as epsilon x y is equal to half delta alpha by delta t plus delta beta by delta t, and you know that this we have represented already in terms of the velocity gradient. So, this we can write half into del v by del x plus del u by del y. Okay. So, similarly, the other stresses also we can write epsilon y z we can write as half del w by del y plus del v by del z. Similarly, epsilon z x we can write half del z of u plus del x of w. Okay. So, obviously, from here you can see that shear strain rates are symmetric. So, in terms of tensor if we write, then epsilon I j we can write as half del u j by del x I plus del u I by del x j. Okay. And you can see that epsilon I j is equal to epsilon j I, right. So, this is a symmetric tensor. Okay. So, now if you consider both the linear deformation as well as angular deformation, and if you want to write the shear strain rate in terms of epsilon ij, then we can write as, so considering both linear and angular deformation. Okay, we can write now epsilon ij as second order tensor. So, you can see it will be epsilon xx, epsilon xy, epsilon xz and epsilon yx, epsilon yy, epsilon yz and epsilon zx, epsilon zy and epsilon zz. So, it is a second order tensor. Now, let us consider two special cases. Okay. So, special cases. Now, if you see that if del b by del x is equal to minus del u by del y. Okay. So, in that case you can see that angular deformation epsilon xy, obviously from the expression you can see it will be 0 and omega xy will be minus del u by del y. So, what is happening here? So, you can see that if epsilon xy is equal to 0, so there will be no deformation. So, it will rotate like a solid body, right. So, if you have a initially one fluid element like this, then after time delta t, obviously it will rotate like a solid body like this. Okay. The other special case is if del b by del x is equal to del u by del y. Okay. So, in this particular case you can see epsilon xy just will be equal to del u by del y is equal to del b by del x and omega xy will be 0. So, that means the fluid element has an angular deformation rate, but no rotation about z axis. So, it will look like, if you have one fluid element initially like this. So, if you have the same angular deformation, so if delta alpha is delta beta, in opposite direction if it is same, so it will look like this. So, this angle delta alpha and delta beta will be same in opposite direction, and here also this will be same delta alpha delta beta. So, in the same direction. Okay. Delta alpha delta beta. So, obviously you can see that if you have same angular deformation like this, delta alpha is equal to delta beta, then there will be no rotation of this fluid element. However, it will undergo an angular deformation. Now, you can see that when we are considering the Lagrangian approach, then obviously we need to track each and every particle, and it is very difficult while studying the fluid mechanics problems. So, in this particular case, if we consider the Eulerian approach, then it will be convenient for us, because we will be focusing on a region or domain and we will see what is coming in and going out. So, but we need to have the relation between these two approaches. So, as we discussed that Lagrangian approach is known as system approach, and the Eulerian approach is known as control volume approach. So, if you consider one particular control volume and what is happening, what is coming in, what is going out, that if we note, then it will be easy to study the fluid mechanics problems. So, you can see that a system is a collection of matter of fixed identity which may move, flow and interact with surroundings. So, you can see that it will have the same mass inside a system. A control volume is a volume in space through which fluid may flow. So, obviously, it is convenient for fluid mechanics study to use control volume approach. A moving system flows through the fixed control volume. So, if you consider that this is a system and this is a control volume, and this control volume surface is known as control surface. And in this case, if a moving system flows through this fixed control volume and the moving system transports extensive properties across the control volume surface, and now we need to keep track of these properties that are being transported into and out of the control volume. So, this we can relate this system approach and the control volume approach through this Reynolds transport theorem. So, what does it state? Reynolds transport theorem states that the rate of change of an extensive property n for the system is equal to the time rate of change of n within the control volume and the net rate of the flux of the property n through the control surface. So, we are considering this as a system, and this is the control volume, and in the control volume what is the surface through which the flow will come in and go out. And if we consider one elemental volume, that is dV, and one elemental surface dA, and n is the outward normal, unit normal. So, now you can see that through this Reynolds transport theorem we can write dN by dt of this system is equal to del of del t integral control volume rho eta dV plus area integral rho eta Vr dot n dA. So, in this case n is the any extensive property, eta is the intensive property, rho is the fluid density, Vr is the relative velocity, and n is the outward surface normal. So, now using this Reynolds transport theorem we will derive the continuity equation. So, we will first consider the conservation of mass. So, if you consider the conservation of mass, then capital N will be equal to the mass of the fluid. So, obviously that is the extensive property, and intensive property eta will be just 1 in this particular case. So, you can see that if we consider the conservation of mass, then obviously n will be m and eta will be 1, and as m is the mass is fixed in the system, then obviously dN by dt system will be 0, right. So, you can see that for non-deforming and stationary control volume Vr will be the V, and for non-deforming control volume this first integral we can write as volume integral del rho eta by del t dV. Okay. So, now this second part, if you consider eta is equal to 1 and Vr is equal to V, then rho V dot n dA. So, in this case eta is equal to 1. So, this we can write using Gauss divergence theorem, this surface integral to volume integral if you convert, then we can write volume integral divergence of rho V dV. Okay. So, in this particular case, now if you consider this equation, then left hand side dN by dt system will be 0, and this is your volume integral, and we are considering non-deforming control volume, then we can write del rho by del eta as eta is equal to 1 plus this last term in this equation we are converting to volume integral, putting eta is equal to 1, then we can write divergence of rho V dV. So, since the choice of the elemental control volume is arbitrary, so we can have del rho by del t plus divergence of rho V is equal to 0. So, this is the continuity equation in general. So, we have del rho by del t plus del rho u by del x plus del rho v by del y plus del rho w by del z is equal to 0. So, in differential form we have written. Now, if you consider incompressible flow where you have a constant density incompressible flow. So, for constant density you can see, you can write it as, for constant density incompressible flow, So, we can write, so this will be 0 and rho is constant, so you can take it outside. So, you can write del u by del x plus del b by del y plus del w by del z is equal to 0. So, from the continuity equation for a constant density incompressible flow, we have written this divergence of V is equal to 0. So, what does it mean? That means the volumetric strain rate will be 0 in case of constant density incompressible flow. If you consider steady compressible flow, so for steady compressible flow, obviously this time derivative will be 0 and you can write del rho u by del x plus del rho v by del y plus del rho w by del z will be 0. That means divergence of rho v will be 0. So, this is for steady incompressible flow, but you can see this equation is valid for both steady and unsteady, because we have assumed constant density incompressible flow. So, the first term becomes 0. So, it is applicable for both steady and unsteady incompressible flow. So, in today's class we discuss about the preliminary concepts when the fluid is in motion. First we discussed about the Lagrangian and Eulerian approach. We have considered that the deformation of the fluid when it moves with a fluid element. In this case, we have considered that fluid element undergoes rotation, translation, angular deformation and linear deformation. When we considered the angular deformation, we have represented the shear strain in terms of the velocity gradient as well as the angular velocity in terms of the velocity gradient, and we have shown that angular velocity tensor is skew symmetric and the shear strain rate tensor is symmetric. Next, we have discussed about the system approach and the control volume approach, and we have related this system approach and control volume approach through Reynolds transport theorem. Next, we used the conservation of mass law and we have derived the continuity equation from the Reynolds transport theorem. Thank you.